Good evening, fellow Reds. Hi, well, welcome to this Wednesday night. What a spectacular line of guests we've got today as well. So we're going. There's so much to talk about, actually. Surprisingly, not just about the match last night. We've got loads of transfer talk that we want to go get into. There's talk about Trent to Madrid. Have they given up? There's a Greek striker that suddenly just popped in, popped out. Who knows what's going on with there? And then some left back talk as well. So even something I actually haven't even captured. But yeah, so I'm just trying to take everything in, try to absorb all the information that's been thrown at us the last 24 hours. But yeah, maybe now this is the what's the word? The calm before the storm, or the therapeutic kind of angle that I'm trying to get at with my brilliant guest today. I'm going to start with Race and find out how you're doing. How are you, Race?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Obviously just on the backs of yesterday's result, just a little frustrating, but look, Forest having a great season. We know that they gave us problems in the first game, and the return fixture here was no different. And so, of course, being in this title race, you have other games to watch as well, like tonight's North London Derby. So come on, Spurs. Let's hope they get a result and help us out a little bit. Who knows? Maybe this title challenge will be us and Forest. Like, man, who would have thought that was coming? So that's kind of what I'm thinking, can Arsenal put the pressure on Forest tonight? I think that's what the main storyline is, not on us. But yeah, all good. We're in our busy period here. We got a lot of games coming up, and so I'm just just excited to see us play. Again.
I really like that little bit of needle as well. Putting pressure on Arsenal. Forest putting pressure on Arsenal. I like it. I'm here for it. AFTV and all that jazz. We can watch that all night, I'm sure. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to and hello to Muse, to Stig. There's some brilliant guests as well on the chat. So just throw it all out there. Let's get your thoughts out in the chat as well. Harry, how are you doing tonight, mate?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. Excited to talk about some more Liverpool-related stuff.
Yeah, lots to talk about as well. And you know what? I feel the pressure tonight because we've got another host that's making an appearance today. So I feel the pressure about giving a really good impression of myself. But Dan, how are you, mate?
I am very good. Testing out the new headset, so you'll have to bear with me, everybody. To honestly, I'm actually quite happy after yesterday's game. You have to look at it in the context. 7 hours of football before Nottingham Forest conceded a goal. They don't half know how to defend. They don't half know how to defend for their lives. Murillo was fabulous, fantastic, brilliant for a fella who's not your quintessentially biggest centre-back, but he was fantastic. He had the record for the most clearances against Brighton. It was 15, and he broke it against Liverpool with 18. So if that tells you something, that we were very good against a very good Nottingham Forest team, and that has to be said. First half, not the way we wanted it to be, but the second half, I mean, I'm feeling super confident that the team was able to turn that situation around. And on another day without Matt Sells, it's 3-1, and it's a fabulous result. So I think you've got to look at it in the context that if we go to Brentford, they concede goals. They've conceded 2, 3 or 4 times. They conceded 3, 4 or 5 times. They do like to let a goal in now and again. So I'm expecting goals. I'm expecting us to get the result we need against Brentford. So it makes it a good week for me. So yeah, really happy at the moment.
And I think that's a really good, interesting point as well. So there was a bit of chat as well amongst us within our LFC channel about what's the harder fixture, away to Brentford or away to Nottingham Forest. So, Race, I'll come to you about that one actually. What are your thoughts about the difficulty? And we should. I'm not saying that it's a given that we'll beat Brentford, but coming out of Nottingham and coming out with a point, it's a tough place. Just those points that Dan just reiterated were really, really good points. Forest are a really good team. They're top 4. They're challenging for Champions League spots. So going there, getting a point is a good result for us.
I mean, I would say the Forest was probably a little tougher than Brentford, just given their defense is stronger, as we saw last night. And that atmosphere, I think, was incredible as well. I mean, Forest, they've got history behind them as well. They have a a pretty decent story there. And so, Brentford just, they ship in goals. So, and that's something that, it makes them more vulnerable. So getting a point at Forest, I mean, if you just look blindly at this result, you draw away to the second place team in the league where you concede very early and then you get an equalizer in the second half and then are pushing, and that attack, in that last half hour of the game was trying to find something, and they had a great defensive performance. If you just blindly look at that, you're like, okay, that's not a bad result. But because it's Forest, some people may think it's like, oh, Forest really away. But again, Forest, we're past the halfway point of the season. I mean, Forest are legit this season. Like, they're for real. Maybe next year they'll fall off and forget about the past. This season, they are right now the second best team in the league. So I don't think it's a bad result by any means. You can be upset with the way we started the game. We don't really create anything in the first half, and like you can talk about hey, maybe we need to there seems to be a little more fire to start off there. And we obviously went into this game knowing that Forest are quality because we lost to them earlier in the season. So they definitely knew that. And so, credit to the team for weathering the early storm, right? I mean, they get an early goal, then who knows? Then they could get another chance and it's 2-0. And all of a sudden you're really behind the 8 ball. And again, we saw how tough Forest were to break down. And so to kind of hang in there and to kind of control the game a little bit. I know the first half wasn't great, really didn't do anything, but I do give him credit in the second half for picking it up. But then I look ahead to this week and like, hey, let's get 3 points here. Especially if Arsenal drop points tonight. I mean, then you got to look at that weekend game like, hey, this is a chance to, then we have that game in hand to really push on in this title challenge, right? So, so the urgency has to be there at the weekend. This is, sometimes when you have these multiple games in a week, sometimes one's a bad result or not a bad result, but one you drop points in and the other you don't. So this game at the weekend, I would say like, hey, let's be on it. Let's try to, get a result there. And, I think, getting by Forest with the points, just how that game started and just how the first half went, I think is still, some good things to draw from that. So hopefully that this weekend the attack can get a little more firing early and kind of put that game away and try to get some early momentum in that one.
Yeah, and I think you've just gone into a topic that I wanted to talk about quite nicely, actually. So Harry, I'm going to come to you. And I don't believe it was an experiment. I think it's justified that Diaz was able to play as a number 9, looking at the type of goals that he has scored in the past. I've mentioned it a few times. The positions that he gets himself when coming off the left is very, very number 9-esque. So goals in between the posts, he drifts in and whatnot. Has that experiment, if that's what you want to call it, come to an end? Now Jota's back. Is Jota justifying that he should be starting from now on?
I think when Jota first came back from injury a few weeks ago, I think he looked really off the pace. He was actually quite hard to watch. I was thinking, what's happened to him? Obviously, he was just coming back, and he was probably going to come good again. And he looked good yesterday from what I saw. As I say, I told you before, I didn't even get to see the game, but from what I saw, just a snippet, he looked good. Just the last 10 minutes, I think.
He could have had a hat-trick yesterday.
Yeah,
You may not have seen that, but he could have had a hat-trick within 5-10 minutes of coming on.
I saw Sells made a really good save.
Yeah,
really good saves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there was some fantastic saves. I'm just trying to think of the third one. So there was the one-on-one when Sells came out, and then there was an opportunity when he hit another player, I'm sure, but just one of those things.
Yeah, I think Diaz offers something a bit different up front, almost what Núñez should be offering, but doesn't always. I think, we saw it in that Leverkusen game when he first tried it, getting in behind. He said before the game, he said Jonathan Tah is a good centre-back who defends well against sort of target men strikers. So we want to put someone on that's going to get in behind. Diaz did exactly that, literally for his first goal. I remember Jones played it through and he dinked the keeper and it was wonderful. So he offers something different. But when Jota's on his game, I think we saw it a lot, probably a year or two ago. He probably will start almost week in, week out. Because when he's on it, he scores most the shots on target he takes, it feels. So, yeah, I don't know if it's over, but if Jota stays fit, I think he'll be starting a lot of games in the coming months.
Yes, I agree. And so again, maybe this is actually just thinking about what we've seen yesterday, Dan. When we're facing a very low block team like Forest, Diaz may struggle, but the two games that stand out for him are Leverkusen and Spurs. Now, what's the kind of common denominator? They play really quite high. Their defensive line is very high. So horses for courses kind of thing. Diaz is really good against those teams that push up, and he allows them to bend in. Whereas with a Jota, he's a bit more sharper in the box.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with what Diaz was doing, he was doing a lot of the right things, but he just lacks that. He isn't a 9. That's the thing. He is a false 9, isn't he? Because he doesn't have that sort of movement off the ball that Jota has. He was doing all the right things in the space, but I think in that first half where it was really sort of the full experiment, as we're calling it with Diaz, is that he was getting into the right spaces, but I think the players who were feeding him the ball, whether it's a trust thing, whether it's an idea of, sort of like, we're going to keep trying to work the wings, get the ball out to Gakpo, get the ball out to Salah. It was very difficult because of how well Nottingham Forest had set themselves up. And it has to be said that two things can be true at the same time, that it doesn't just mean that because Diaz wasn't effective last night means that he can't do the job. It can just be that you're up against people who are very capable. Diaz's idea was to obviously draw the centre-backs into a battle and out of position, and Murillo did on a couple of occasions do that. The problem is there wasn't the runners in behind, so Diaz would come in so deep. The only player ahead of him was Szoboszlai. And it just really meant that they were so isolated. Anytime that we got the ball kind of in that midfield and broke that sort of line in the spaces, we just weren't able to create anything. And the one occasion that it did happen was the sort of 2v2, 2v1 sort of situation where Diaz kind of just held onto the ball a little bit too long and didn't play the pass when he needed to for Gakpo. And we could have been 1-1 going into half-time had the situation sort of materialised in the right way. But with Jota, I said in the group chat earlier on today, the team that played last night against Nottingham Forest was exactly the team that played against Brentford, barring Diogo Jota. Now, it could tell me that Arne Slot is a man of conviction, he's a man of consistency as well. What he normally does is he generally does things the same way. He doesn't make half-time substitutions. He's done one. He's just done one. Well, except the FA Cup, but I'm not including that. He doesn't make them. He doesn't react like that. He doesn't panic. He sits there and goes, the players are good on the pitch, can do what I need them to do. I just need to make these sort of changes. And it was no surprise that when we came in to the second half in that game, that we were so much better. The chances were coming even before Jota came on. I think we could all see that they were doing much better. And then, of course, the master stroke. We don't often see a substitution on a corner. It's sort of like an unwritten rule that you don't make changes at a corner. And on this occasion, it was, I don't think it could be more perfect. Yeah, 2 of them. And the fact that both of them were the ones who were the assist and the goal, which is incredible. And I have to say, right, and I'm not throwing shade at anyone, but the 2 people who have been substituted, Andy Robertson and Kanate, did not celebrate that goal quite as much as I did. And I don't play for the team. So I think a little bit of, yeah, you got that one right, boss. I think they would have been disappointed to come off, and I think that's fine. I think that's right. But I think the only change I would probably suggest for me is Núñez is fully rested. Wouldn't surprise me to see Núñez play. Jota's minutes do need to be managed. We don't know what the situation is with his full fitness. I've always said this and I'll stick to it. And he proves my point more and more. Diogo Jota is incredible off the bench, but sometimes when he starts, you just have to ask, was he even on the pitch? And there's been some games, Southampton last season? Or was it Bournemouth? No, it was Bournemouth last season when first home game or something. And I just remember Jota had scored the entire game, though. I don't think he did anything else. He was absolutely terrible. But then you put him on as a substitute. He's just incredible. He's box office. He came on and had 4 shots. And, he seems to read the game. He's a player who just benefits from being that super sub at times. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Núñez. It wouldn't surprise me to see Jota. I can't see it being Diaz through the middle again. Don't see that at all. I think I'd like to see Tsimikas. Robbo, I said before the season started, I got a little bit of hate, and I said the time was coming. The time was nigh. Not to a case of get out of the team. No, not at all. But his replacement was required, and I would really hope that that's somewhere that if we can do some business this window, that would be the place on the pitch where we can improve almost instantly. Like I think there's arguments across the pitch. People are saying 6, a centre back, and attackers. They're all difficulty. Is that you can't sell any of those positions to anyone and say you're going to be my starter, because we've got superstars everywhere. But the only place we don't have superstars right now is at left back. So I would like to say that Tsimikas could start. That would be my change anyway for Brentford. That's my main change.
And what about yourself, Race? What would you do? Striking positions, the Diaz thing. I mean, one thing I did want to actually get onto was think about Salah and his performance. He's gone off a little bit, gone off the boil a little bit. Maybe I'll come back to you as well, Dan, and Harry as well. We can ask that question. What are our feelings about how Salah's playing recently over the last few weeks? Should we be worried? Is he being overplayed? Does the boss need to start thinking about Chiesa a little bit more?
I don't think Salah. I just think teams are maybe keen on him a little more. Not that he can't beat that, but I just think in this, maybe in this Forest game, they just okay, we're not going to let Salah beat us, because if he does start beating us, then we're in big trouble. So we're going to try and let these other guys. And hey, Diaz is a little bit opposition. That number 10 position is a little bit of rotation there. It's not as set as of course Salah is on that right hand side. So they're okay, we're going to see what they can do on the other positions, but we're not going to let Salah beat us. So I think there's a little bit of that going on. And that happens every year with Salah. The teams are going to start doing that. And so I don't have any, doubts or anything that Salah, won't break out of it. Because look, every player's human. You can't be world class every single week or for the entire season. So it's just, a bit of a struggle. But even then, he's still Mo Salah. So I don't have any concern about him. You would hope that maybe Chiesa, coming back into the fold, hopefully he can get a little bit of run just to give Salah that break, because it is always good to, rest players from here and there. And of course, Chiesa's brought in to, play a role on this team. And especially as we get down to the, the final part of this season, we're going to need every single player that we can have. And so Chiesa could be a nice option, if you want to start him and bring him off the bench, similar to Jota. I mean, that could be certainly an option as well. As for the striker, it's just a move that we're making, with Diaz up top. And, it's just because we don't have because Nunez just really isn't taking a hold of that position, right? Because we all hope that Nunez could take a hold of that, but he just hasn't done that this season. And so we know what Jota can provide. And I think Dan said it perfectly. Jota off the bench is just this, can be this world-class, do-it-all type player, right? I mean, that's just such a perfect role for him. But you probably want him to have more of an impact when he starts too. You don't want him just to be that bench player. So it's a great asset to have, but you ideally want someone to be starting the number 9 that can affect the game throughout. You don't need to bring on a sub to have, you don't want to be in that position to have to bring him on and search for a goal. And so in our starting 11, you have Diaz up there, you have Nunez or sometimes Gakpo. It's really just a move right now to kind of get us by, maybe through this season, because maybe, it's probably more in the summer when you're looking to, if you're looking to move on from Nunez and bring in a striker, that's what you're going to do. You're not going to do it in this window. You're not going to change things up, I don't believe, or mess with stuff too much attacking wise. And so it's just kind of a move. We've seen it work. We've seen it not work. You just try to rotate and see what kind of, combination works. If it's Diaz on the left side and it's Gakpo through the middle, if it's Nunez up top and Gakpo left, or Nunez out wide and Diaz up front. You just try to figure it out. Because, again, you still have Salah on that right-hand side, and you hope that he can do his thing, and then you kind of worry about the other stuff. We have that luxury, with having Salah. So, I don't know what the right answer is at this moment. I would probably lean towards, Diaz through the middle just because, I don't know. I just love seeing Gakpo on the left-hand side. I think he'd be so dangerous, just cutting in and firing a rocket, into the bottom of the net. Because I don't think Diaz, when he cuts in on the left side like that, he's not as sharp as Gakpo is. So I would prefer to see Gakpo on the left and Diaz through the middle. Of course, if Nunez hits form and he starts putting in goals and stuff, I would love to see Nunez, but he just hasn't done that this season. I think the writing's kind of on the wall for him, unless he has this magical second half of the season, which, I wouldn't rule it out, but it's tough to see that right now. So as for this at the weekend, Nunez is fresh. I could see that as a spot for him to start. Just given also Brentford's, their defense is a little more vulnerable. So maybe hopefully that's a position to start Nunez. But it's just kind of a tough, rotation right now. We're just trying to still figure it out and trying to find that right formula. And so I just, I don't have, because we have all these players are talented attackers. We all see them on their best. They're all brilliant. So you hope that at least someone is going to be firing, in some of these crucial games here.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's lots of options, and I think the positive thing is that we're getting lots of players back, and we just need to find our mojo. But Dan, did you have a point before I was going to go to Harry? No, okay. Harry, just coming back to what you were saying. Sorry, what the guys were saying. Are we a little bit hesitant in substituting Salah? Even if it's just 15 minutes, just to try Chiesa, just to see what's actually going on. Do you keep him on because he's Mo Salah? Yesterday, you may have missed it, but you probably would have seen it on highlights. The opportunities that he had, bar a miraculous goalkeeper performance, barring Aina being on the line and clearing one off the line itself. Salah could have had two easily yesterday, if not more.
Yeah, I think every season he has these little spells where he doesn't look himself, and sometimes it could be mental up in his head, sometimes it could be that he's been overplayed, but you can see he always wants to play. I think the reason he always stays on is because that's what he's asked. I think he wants to play as many minutes as possible. He wants to get as many numbers as possible. I think you can tell he knows about these records that he's, the way he's going, he's going to break this season already. 17 goals, 13 assists or something like that. Something ridiculous. So I think he stays on out of choice. But I think in some games, especially when it's wrapped up, you just need to have a break because there's no need for. I understand that he wants to get these records, but sometimes getting a bit of rest is the more important thing. You don't want to risk an injury or whatever. I know he's basically been quite immune to injury over the years, but you never know. And I think sometimes in games, I see the argument for bringing Chiesa on or someone like that just to get a bit more energy going. But I think in any game, no matter how bad he's playing, there's always a good chance he's going to score. He always, I remember Southampton 3-2. He was probably one of our worst players I remember, and he ended up scoring a goal. Yeah, like the keeper came out and he tapped it past him and then scored a penalty and won the game for us. So I think keeping him on makes sense because he's always a threat.
Yeah. I mean, I saw something, a fairly well-known account on X. I think the notion that they were going with was they started describing Salah as a poor footballer, and now we're seeing that come out. I know it's ridiculous, man. I was really tempted to kind of say something. I don't generally get involved on Twitter these days, but it's just ridiculous. I know it's laughable, isn't it? But yeah, I think it's a good point. We'll move on. We'll see what Spurs and Arsenal do today, and hopefully there's still a big enough gap going into the weekend. But yeah, there's lots and lots of transfer news, surprisingly, over the last 24 hours. One of the main things that's just come out, and I've been a little bit cheeky with the headline up on the video tonight. Madrid have given up on Trent. So I can't remember who it was, but there was, again, Twitter was coming out. There's a news article that's on our page where it's essentially saying that Madrid have given up trying to buy Trent Alexander-Arnold this winter, this January window. Obviously, that leaves Trent here for another 6 months until the summer. Good news, bad news for some. I don't know. We'll find out. But then also it means potentially if he doesn't sign the contract, he does go on a free. So Dan, what are your thoughts about that particular piece of news? Is it surprising, essentially?
No, it's certainly not surprising, is it? I mean, it's always coincidental, isn't it, that news comes out with transfers when Real Madrid start losing. It's sort of just how it works, and they've got absolutely hammered by Barcelona. The era of Real Madrid is finished. They're going to go back into an era of the 90s, nearly 2000s. Barcelona are there to stay, which, even though they're absolutely skint and can't buy anyone or register anyone, they still have ultimate pull. Yeah, I mean, he was never going to leave in January. Let's be honest. Unless the bid was absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous. But Real Madrid don't buy players for big money. They just like to pay them in signing on fees, and that's just their way. They're sending a bid in, putting an offer in, and all the rest of it. It's just there to unsettle the player. And the only thing I'll take from it, in a weird way, is sort of maybe I'm just viewing into it that the decision isn't made. I don't think the decision's fully made, and whether Real Madrid are fully sort of committed to the idea that they think he is joining them. Maybe I'll eat my words. I'm not. I sort of came to terms with the idea that, if Trent goes, he goes. It is what it is. What can you do? It'll be a shame he goes without a fee, of course, for the club. It'll be a shame that he goes anyway, because he's going to be a true Liverpool legend, and going the way that he will, if he does go that way, is really going to ruin that reputation for a lot of people, me included, and it would be a real shame.
Why do you think that was so, Dan? Why do you think there's still a little bit of uncertainty from Real Madrid's side that Trent isn't 100% committed to joining them just yet?
Because they made the bids. It's as simple as that, really. It's a case of if he told them already, I'm coming. And these conversations happen. His agent, his brother, will have had conversations in a cafe or a hotel or in an offices or a lawyer's, whatever. Will have had these conversations, and if they had been told, yeah, Trent's coming, don't worry about it, you'll join in the summer, or all the rest of it, we don't need to deal with a pre-contract because it's all set, like the decision's made, then all of this fancy dance doesn't need to happen. It doesn't need to unsettle Trent is pointless. We're not in the same league. We're not even at the moment competing in the Champions League as such, to this point quite yet. There's no benefit for them off the pitch to make a bid for Trent Alexander-Arnold now, other than to try and sort of force an issue, whether that's to force an issue within our club to say to him, right, listen, sign the deal, mate, or we're going to talk about accepting this offer, and kind of start playing hardball. And I don't know whether or not, obviously none of us know how in hand these contracts are and how the situation is, how advanced the situation is, and I'm fairly confident that Virgil van Dijk is fine. Salah, I am still fairly confident that his is okay. I don't believe in any way of the world that he would want to go to Saudi quite yet. I just don't see it. He's not ready for that. He's not ready to retire. He's an incredible athlete. He wants to win Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues, and he wants to say, you can see it in his interviews, and he's very vocal. I've seen more interviews with Mo Salah in this last 6 months than I've seen in the last 7 years. He's clearly playing the media for a reason to get what he wants, and that's absolutely fine. But just on to his point of the way he played last night, he's not actually scored a goal at the City ground yet, so it's not a surprise. They did really well to isolate him. Nico Williams was quite literally gave himself cramp to keep him out of the game. He does have, I think it was rightly said, I think it was either Race or Harry had said that in January he does have these off periods, and they do come, and he's entitled to them because he's incredible, and he can't be incredible all season. It'd be nice if he is, but Brentford, I think, will be a much more suitable game for Mo Salah. I think he'll get a lot more joy in that game. I think he'll have a lot more freedom, and I think we'll definitely see him be a lot more involved than say he was against Nottingham Forest. It was just really unfortunate. He was having one of those games where you could just see he was trying to force it. He was snatching at shots. He was hitting too hard, hitting them wide, and you could see it just wasn't quite working for him. Had that started maybe 15 minutes early, because he seemed to come alive at about the 86 minutes. If he came alive at about the 66 minutes, I think he would have scored. So yeah, he doesn't. He's allowed a night off. It wasn't his best game, but to be honest with you, I've seen him play worse. But when we played Everton last season, he was horrendous and still scored 2 goals. So he has that in his locker.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I agree. So, race. We're going to stick with the Trent bit of news as well. Again, just exactly going back on what Dan was saying. It's the PR. Do you believe that actually Trent is still a little bit undecided with his future? Do you think, or is it just a case of, who said it? The Spanish propaganda machine. Derek, really, really good to have you on the chats. Is it just that? Is it just a kind of unsettle Liverpool, unsettle Trent, just get them to go on and sell him, or make the offer for Trent itself into contract in the summer?
Well, anytime there's a a feeling of any mega superstar out there that is possible to leave their club, Real Madrid are going to inquire and they're going to do their, in their mind, their due diligence and kick the tires and see what the motion is there. And of course you have, Jude Bellingham in your own building to, convince speak on Trent, and try to recruit him. Probably, there's probably been some discussions there. And, I think this is, I think Dan summed up perfectly. As soon as Real Madrid start losing, there's rumors about, and Trent is. His future right now is definitely uncertain. There's just been speculation, obviously, with his contract, and I too was never of the belief that he would get sold this window. He's too important for us. We're having a great season. There's even if you are set on losing him in the summer, you're not going to sell him right now and try to make a profit when he's too important to the team, right? Like that's not a smart way. Like if you lose him, you lose him, whatever, 20 million, zero, whatever. It makes no difference at the end of the day, for a January purchase. So, you definitely hope that, again, you just hope that this gets resolved at some point. You hope that you would think that the better season we have, if we go on to win trophies and stuff, like why would Trent want to leave? Like he is a club legend. He knows. I think he's starting to recognize really his stature at the club, and he is on it. If he isn't already a Liverpool legend, he's certainly on his way. If certainly down the road, he's going to be the captain of this club if he stays with us long term. He's Van Dijk won't be here forever, and it'll be Trent's turn. And so, I just don't see. Look, this is just me as a Liverpool fan and putting the Liverpool glasses on. I just don't see why he would want to leave. Liverpool, like it really is a great setup. We're proving this season that we're still playing well, even with the new manager. Obviously it's his boyhood club and everything. Like it really is a perfect situation. He's just progressed so much, since coming into our team. And so, just this contract stuff will be, it's kind of, it's coming at a time when you have, of course, Van Dijk and Salah up for new contracts as well, the three arguably most important players in our team, So, and he's the one, I guess, if you would say of the three, I would feel the least confident of him staying. Although I still feel it's he'll sign a new deal with us. I would say Van Dijk would be top, and then Salah, and then Trent. If I had to rank them, I wouldn't say how confident I am either way. I don't know yet, but it's a lot of talk. It's a lot of chatter. No surprise to see those Real Madrid rumors fizzle out. Of course, right when the window opened, there was news and stuff, and because Trent can, he can sign a deal with a new contract, a new club, this month if he wanted to, and so you have that kind of looming large. But yeah, I think it's just a waiting game for now. I don't see any strong rumors to suggest that he's for sure signed the contract. It's just negotiations, and how do we know as outsiders what those negotiations are like, right? It's really impossible to tell because there's so much agent talk. There's so many other things that factor. You have people from one side trying to pull him. You have other people, and there's just so much noise around it. And so you just, at the end of the day, you just see him perform on the pitch. You see what he can do, and let the play speak for itself, and just hope that he signs a new deal with us. And as I just said, I don't see why he wouldn't, because of the situation that we're in right now.
And Harry, the situation from a Liverpool perspective, if it is true that Real Madrid have given up on trying to buy Trent this January, it only helps Liverpool in their quest for the league title, for Champions League title, and maybe some domestic cups. Who knows what type of season we could end up with? But it adds a little bit of stability into the second half of the season. Surely, Slot knows that he's going to be having Trent for at least another half of the season. When it comes to the summer, we'll sort out any issues at that point. I personally believe if he goes in the summer, but at least it's a clear run now, right?
Yeah, I think any manager would like to know that they're going to have the squad they have by the end of the January window, so that's always good. I think it will add a bit of stability. I still think there'll be a bit of unrest amongst the players, knowing that still. I thought I saw something about Van Dijk had signed his deal, nothing official, but it was everywhere that it was done. But I don't know who that came from.
Yeah.
But
Indy
maybe speaking now, officially 3 of them haven't signed their contracts, the 3 most important players, arguably. So there still will be some unrest amongst that team with them thinking, God, after this season, those 3 are gone. But in general, yeah, I think there'll be more stability. And I think Slot will be happy that he now knows that he'll have his entire squad for the rest of the season, at least.
Yeah, and it's going to be one that lingers on at least until the end of the month, and who knows what will happen. But come 1st of February, we will know who we have in our squad, and we just trust Slot to make those right decisions. We've spent many an hour on this channel speaking about Trent and the contract situation, also with Salah and Van Dijk. The sooner it comes to an end, the better. But we'll move on to a new. Over the last, it's been a bit of a funny one, Dan. This one, so a Greek striker that's been thrown out. So Stefanos Tzimas, who is currently playing for Bundesliga 2 side Nuremberg. He's got some good stats: 14 games, 8 goals, one assist so far this season. 19-year-old, seems like he's a bit of a hot prospect. Lots of teams are interested in the young lad. But over the last 24 hours, we've gone from not knowing who this player was to being heavily linked. Sam Maguire throwing out that we've essentially bought the player, to then have James Pearce, good old Jamie boy, coming out this morning and throwing or pissing on everyone's chips and dismissing it out of hand with his favorite phrases that essentially a word bingo of James Pearce's repertoire, vocabulary, has kind of essentially just died that down. So it's just one of those things. I guess it's maybe just transfer talk, something to whet the appetite. But is it something that really excited you yesterday, and then this morning are you disappointed?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, again, I've been, people who've seen me and watched me a few times, I know that there's only one person making transfer decisions at Liverpool Football Club, and it's not Arne Slot. It's Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes' laptop, because that's how it works. That they are who is in charge of who these players are and who's coming in, and that's the truth. Of course, there is a committee, there's communication, there's people speaking between each other about what is it that we need. But when it comes down to who's looking at the players, who's finding the players, who's speaking to the players and the agents, it certainly isn't Arne Slot, because he has a job to do, which is coaching this team, and he's doing a brilliant job at it. Stefanos Tzimas looks, on the data, he looks phenomenal. He trends very similar to Victor Gokers in the way that he finishes his chances, the way he has them. If you look at them just on a purely data spreadsheet and looking at the two, they're very, very similar. And it's exciting, because as much as we can all sit here and go, do I want a player who plays in the Bundesliga too? And it's like, well, we all sit here, don't we, and go, why did we not sign McAllister from wherever? Why did we not sign Baleba from wherever? Why did we not sign, list player from Brighton, and, we can get to that situation? Well, that's because we can't take as many risks at Liverpool, because Brighton, there's no expectation to win anything. They don't have to win a title. They don't have to win a Champions League. They don't have to win the FA Cup or the League Cup. The fans, their expectation of their club is to have a good time and play good football. And it's much easier to have a good time and play good football when there's no expectation on you. When the expectation for Liverpool is you can't get it wrong.
We can't carry players, basically.
No, you can't risk it, can you? You can't carry them and say, oh, right, okay, let's give this lad a chance who's played 30 games for FC Metz or something like that, and he could be the next big thing. But the problem is we already have a load of superstar players who we all think are brilliant. Jadon Danns can't get a kick. Federico Chiesa can't get a kick. There's a huge list of brilliant footballers. They can't play because this is where the bar is set by Arne Slot, and I'm here for it. I'm here for him setting it so high that Federico Chiesa's come in, and he's just said to him, this is where you need to be. I'm not just going to give you a place in the team because you feel like you need one. I'm not going to just do it because, I'm going to say you need to meet this level. And you've got to be, Yeah, exactly. Harvey Elliott's got credit in the bank, and I said when the new manager came in, I said fresh starts are brilliant for some people and they're terrible for others because, you know, we looked at players like Bobby Clark, for example, who's no longer with us, Stefan Bajcetic, who's, you know, obviously on loan. Harvey Elliott is slightly different in the situation because he was a first-team player. These new managers coming in is like, this isn't good for me. Like I built up this credit and built up this, you know, trust and respect with a manager, and he's now left, and I've now got a new guy who owes me nothing, and he, you know, I don't owe him anything, so I've got to come in there and show him what I'm made of. And we look at players who've succeeded. I mean, Canate was in and out of the team last season. Now he's been a stalwart. Ryan Gravenberch has been a sensation, for God's sakes. Who would have said that Ryan Gravenberch is the first name after Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk on the team sheet? None of us would have said that. But then there's players who suffered, and one of them being Harvey Elliott, and he's had some hard lines because of the injury, of course. And that is what it is. Whether or not the manager fancies him or not is another question. I don't know whether he's physical enough. I think we only have room for one small fella on the pitch, and that's Alexis McAllister, and he's got a World Cup medal. So I would say, unfortunately, he's a little bit out of luck as it stands right now, which is a shame. But football is a ruthless business, and we have been accused a few times as Liverpool as a team of being too loyal to players for too long. And perhaps we need to say, you're a great player, you're just not great enough. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, race. Something that just popped in my head about a scenario where I feel we should be exploring. So Dan has said some absolutely brilliant things, and I totally agree. So we as Liverpool, you know, the squad that we have, we can't be carrying players. We've already seen the issues, the discourse that we have in regards to Thiago last year, Naby Keita, years gone by, Nunes this season. But there's an opportunity for Liverpool to kind of flex their muscles in the sense of we buy this player, and then we have the ability to strike up, you know, relationships with other clubs in the Premier League. You know, Richard Hughes has a really good relationship with Bournemouth. We could say, here's a player that we believe would be good for you. We're going to buy him, but we're going to loan him out to you so you can do whatever you need to do, but then benefit from essentially having a free player. So there's that situation. Obviously, there's clubs that we're trying to buy in Europe. So again, should we be smarter? Should we be looking at players like this, where we can get them in, see what they're all about, but know that they're on our books already?
Yeah, I will say, just with, you know, if you're buying a player and then you're thinking about loaning them out for a season or so, I just think, you know, a lot can happen in a year. You know, you might have a plan, and then some things change, and a player pops or something happens, and then all of a sudden your plans are kind of twisted, or I don't want to say backfire, but they just change. And so I'm a little more skeptical of kind of buying a player or just selling. I know it's worked out in the past, you know, like a Harvey Elliott, you know, or loaning players out and stuff, you know. I think with that type of business model, I mean, I don't think it's a bad one. Like, you know, if it's a low risk move, it's not going to cost you much. Like why not? But I do see, you know, the striker position as something. And look, maybe we're going to find out what Slot is like. You know, is he the type of the manager, you know, for a striker? Is he going to spend big money and wanting to kind of come in right away and be fine, or is he willing to take a little more time and be a little more patient? You know, dang it, a player, try to develop him and bring him in and whatnot. So you know, there's multiple ways of going about it. I just think, you know, with our plans, or, you know, like what I think of, you know, Nunez is going to be sold off this summer, and then there's been reported interest. There's been, you know, rumors of that going around. You know, I think that the striker position is one where you're looking to buy someone to, I mean, because obviously Nunez isn't playing, you know, that well this season, so not replacing his production, but you're going to be signing a striker that, hey, I want this guy to, you know, be a regular in our team. I want to be starting. I want it to be scoring, you know, 20 plus goals and stuff, you know. So I don't see in the striker position us bringing in a player just to kind of loan him out or something like that. Like I would see us in this spot bringing in a player to, hey, we want you to compete right away and be in contention for a spot. And so with this move of bringing him in and loaning him out is just, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it if you have other options as well. But I just think, if you're looking to offload, because you're going to get a hefty sum for Nunez. Like, even though he isn't playing well, you're still going to get a pretty decent fee. Like, he still has a lot of potential. There's clubs out there that'll pay a decent amount for him. So then you use that money, then, look, we'll buy this, sell the buy. That's what we, our model is sometimes. So you use that money and then you help out in other ways. So I would think if we have money and if there's a striker available, maybe, Isak from Newcastle, if you're able to swing that type of deal, then you use the money to go towards something like that. And so, I see this striker position as being more, our kind of big move in the summer, right? Like, I think that's where we would spend the most money if we sell Nunez. So I would save your assets for something like that. Maybe you can do a deal like this on the side, bring something. I mean, we kind of did this with Solanke years back. We kind of bought him for cheap, tried to develop him. It just didn't really work out. Obviously, he's gone on to do great things at other clubs, and so I think that
there's so many examples where we've bought for cheap and cashed in.
Right, exactly. So, like, sometimes, again, you have a plan and it doesn't work out. And look, a move like this, the plan necessarily isn't. There's not a lot of risk involved with it. So, I wouldn't be too critical of it. But again, I would, in this position specifically, there would be alternatives to not just a player of this quality and caliber. The fee wouldn't be too much. Like, I'm looking to spend big on this position in the summer if we're moving off of Nunez.
Interesting. So, Harry, another situation, a scenario that we possibly should be looking at is looking more in-house. If we're going to spend money on a player that is doing well in the second division in Germany, we've got Jadon Danns on our books already, who's shown real tenacity in the box, has proven already that he can score goals at professional level, not just I know it's the FA Cup, but the goals that he has scored, the dink last season, being in the right position this season, very very similar to another Englishman that we have spoken about before, Harry Kane. That, my opinion anyway. I don't know if anyone else agrees with that, but should we be giving him more of an opportunity, Danns, if Slot just doesn't fancy Nunez going forward? Is it just difficult to play someone so young?
It's funny we talk about Danns. Actually, I saw he's scored tonight for the under-21s against Sparta Prague, I think. But yeah, I don't necessarily believe that he should or will get more opportunities right now. I just believe if we were linked to a striker like this, Tzimas, then I don't see why he wouldn't be given a chance to Danns, because I don't see why I don't see why the great Greek guy is any better than him. I don't know why. You've got to give someone like that a chance, or at least I see Danns go on loan. Maybe I know Stoke need a striker now. Tom Cannon's been recalled, so that could always be a really good move for him. Give him a 6-month loan in the Championship, see how he does, and then say he smashes it, then maybe in pre-season next season, give him a chance, and then maybe a bit into the Premier League season he might get in the team. But in general, I don't think he necessarily will get a chance now, especially with the three striker options being Jota, Nunez, and then Diaz as well. But yeah, he's, as I say, someone just put in the chat, he is really young as well. So there's lots of potential there, and he's got a lot of time still to develop. But I agree with you when you say he's got that real striker's instinct. Sort of all 3 goals he scored, I know that the 2 against Southampton and then the one the other day, they're all strikers' goals. He's always in the right position. So he's very promising. Whether we'll see him get time this season, we'll see. But definitely in the future, there's potential there for him to spot in our team.
Yeah. Dan, did you want to? I don't know if you wanted to say anything on the back of what we've just said there. Oh no, can't hear you. Yeah. So
I have lost audio. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. Yeah, hopefully you can hear us. No, okay. Yeah. So I'd love to see Dan get a bit more opportunities. The Plymouth game is possibly another one, but then if you're not giving games to Nunez, it's difficult to think of more opportunities that that Dan's could have. I'm just going to set up this, and there you go. But yeah, so we've spoken a lot about the striker position over the last few months. Again, it's going to be another one that's going to crop up over the next few months, and then certainly coming back into um, the summer months. Dan, hopefully you can hear us. We can hear you.
I'm back now. I can hear you now. What was the question?
Good.
Sorry, apologies.
So yeah, we were just talking about Dan's and the stuff that Harry and Race had spoken about. I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to cover off.
Yeah, I do. I mean, we talked a little bit about Solanke, which is a really good point. Is that Liverpool have been very good, and so Michael Edwards has been incredible at his deals. He's the kind of man I wouldn't allow me to sell. I wouldn't let him sell me anything, because generally, if he sells you something, they don't get much better. And in fairness, he's not got it far wrong. We brought in Fabio Carvalho for £1 million from Fulham, and we sold him for however much it was. Was it 40 million?
40 million.
Yeah, close to £40 million to Brentford. I mean, that's exceptional business. I mean, it's serious business. And you look how that's worked out for him at Brentford. It's really not working, is it? And it wasn't going to work out at Liverpool either. To be honest, but looking at this lad, Tzimas, he's very interesting. He looks like he's got a lot of talent. It does fall along the lines if you would like Liverpool to be proactive earlier, to try and get in before they become the 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 million pound player, and just try and jump in a little bit early. But again, as we said before, it's not as easy to take those risks, and transfers are a risk. In the Ian Graham's book, for those who haven't already read it or listened to it, please do. I'll bang on about it forever and eternity, especially if you're interested in transfers. Is that over 50% of transfers, big transfers, fail, and so when you spend the big money, it's a big risk for clubs to even bring players in, and you follow the mantra of you don't bring players in if they're not going to make you better. And when you are Liverpool and when you're top of the table and you're top of the Champions League, it's harder to get better. It really is. But when Klopp started this journey, we could have gone through that Liverpool team and said, we can make everyone better. There was one or two players who we inherited who you would say, no, he was really good in fairness. But going on to Jayden Danns, I think with Jayden Danns, I think it's excellent that you choose Harry Kane as the player to compare him to, because he plays very similar to him, and perhaps it would make sense that he has a career path very similar. Is that Harry Kane didn't really get going until he hit 22, 23. He had a number of loans which weren't exactly scintillating, they weren't incredible, and perhaps it would just help Jayden Danns to have game time, and we can't offer him it. We just can't, as much as his Race rightfully said. Núñez has massive value. As much as he may not work for us, he will work for somebody. He will absolutely work for a team who will play with a two. If they play two up front and have Núñez on the left hand side like he had for Benfica, do not be surprised if he went back to Sporting Lisbon, if Gyökeres got sold, for example, and he goes and bangs 25 goals, because that can just suit him. It's horses for courses. He could go to AC Milan and score 18 goals, and it would just work for them. And he hasn't worked for us, and that's a shame. But it's very difficult as a manager to justify benching a player who scored, was it 9 in 18 for Uruguay? He is involved. I mean, none of us can argue about his off the work defensive rate. He has been brilliant, Núñez. He's almost the opposite of what he was last season. But I don't think we can really say, Dan's, you've been incredible. Right, you're in the team. I think there's a time and a place for him, and I think at the very start of the season, sorry, Spurs have just scored. 1-0, son. That just caught my attention. So yeah, whatever I was saying, just enjoy this moment, because if AFC this later on, I'll be there. Trust me, I'll be there.
We could do a post match.
I'll be calling in. I'll be calling in.
I love it. Let's see. Interesting news about the Arsenal Spurs game. So we'll keep an eye on that. But thank you, Dan, for the update. But yeah, there's right. I did actually want to talk about Patrick Dorgu race. I think actually two stories have come out about a left back in the last 24 hours. Patrick Dorgu, a very young 20-year-old from Denmark, is playing for Lecce out in Italy. He's their current left back, very young, really promising. He's been linked with us today, and then suddenly within the last kind of couple of hours, Kirkes. And that news has just suddenly come out as well. So really quickly, I guess the choice is what do you want to do? Do you want to go for someone a little bit unknown, young, very promising, or someone that is, or again, young, very known in the Premier League, but a lot more expensive?
I would lean towards Kirkes in that department, just because it's Premier League proven. I would say a little bit. Obviously, you mentioned the good relationship that we have with Bournemouth and Richard Hughes and stuff, so that certainly would help out as well. And also, I've seen him and Sobosai have a bit of a relationship as well, so there's maybe a little more convincing on that side. It always helps to have those types of things in negotiation stuff, just so the player, if the player has to push for a move a little bit, they're a little more willing to do it. That never hurts for us. So and yeah, just Kirk is just a little more known. I think you'd just be a little more comfortable in that regard. And he's a young player as well. He's already playing in the Premier League and doing quite well. And so I think obviously that would be a little more heftier of a fee, certainly. We had the Premier League tax on, if you will, right? They're going to squeeze a few extra bucks out of you, but it is a position that, look, I agree with. I think Dan said or Harry said it. Robertson at the beginning of the season, he's just kind of one to watch. Like, hey, is this going to be his last season of really being a regular force, or is he already kind of a push to play Tsimikas a little more just because Robertson, you see is losing his legs a little bit, or just isn't the same player that he was. So I think again, it's something for the summer. I don't think it's going to happen here in January, because Robertson can still do a shift now and again, and Tsimikas is more than capable as a backup, and you can play him if needed. This is going to be a move where it's a summer thing. I keep talking about all these moves we're doing. It's going to be in the summer, because I don't think I think we're kind of past the point in January here of if there's going to be a move to make, I feel like we would have done it, or there'd be some real smoke about it. So I don't see a January move, but. And then this other player, in Italy, you have to remind me of his name again as I
Patrick Dorgu.
Patrick Dorgu. Yeah.
I guess that's kind of just proves the point. 2 days ago, we wouldn't know who Stefanos Tzimas was. Patrick Dorgu again. It's very similar to a lot of other players that we've had linked and actually bought in the past. They may turn out to be absolutely fabulous, but then there's opportunities. There's working life examples of players coming in. Carvalho that we've already mentioned, Solanke a little bit too young. They've come in and really struggled, but. Harry, I'll get your thoughts, because we're coming to the towards the end of tonight's brilliant stream. Could be even better if Spurs keep on keep the performance up and this score as well. But what are your thoughts about the left back position? Should we be looking at someone a little bit more established in Kirkes, or go for the unknown if you trust the data and Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards, etc.?
Yeah, I think in terms of the left back market, there's not a lot of highly established options and at the proper elite level, or no one that's really available. I know Alphonso Davies is on his last 6 months of his contract, but it seems like he's going to go to Real Madrid. And I don't know if he'd be this type of player that we'd want. I'm not sure. But Kirkes, whenever I watched him, he looks good. I think he struggled when he first came to the league. I think didn't quite adapt, but now he looks comfortable and he's in a good Bournemouth side, so I think he'd fit quite well with us. And it's interesting getting linked to these players we've never heard of. It's quite enjoyable getting to find out about these sort of almost unknown talents to us. I had a little look at this Dorgu, and it looks like he's a good sort of bombing left back. He's got 3 assists, I think, this season, so he definitely was the sort of player we'd go for. But
yeah,
you have to wait and see. But I like being linked to these sort of unknown players, because it sort of reminds you of when we signed Robertson almost, 8 million from Hull you never
everyone's going to get onto whatever game they're playing, but certainly Football Manager, get straight onto Lecce, check him out, see what he's all about, his potential stats. Is he a 5-star, world class, or something else? But yeah, I think it's just one of those opportunities. I love all this as well. I guess it's the really only time that I try to enjoy transfers is when there's an unknown and you're trying to figure out, who's this lad about and how have we actually been linked with him. But yeah, so I think we've just reached the hour, and I don't want to keep the guys too much longer because they want to get watching the North London derby, and everyone in the comments, I want you to go ahead and just watch that as well. I really want to say thank you. It's been a really, really enjoyable hour. It's gone really, really quickly. Dan, any last words before we let you go?
Before StreamYard decides it's had enough of listening to me, yeah. Sorry about that, everyone. I'm listening away intensively, and all of a sudden the audio cuts out, so I'm having to leave and come back in. I don't know what it is, but anyway.
Right.
Yeah, no. Honestly, to be honest with you, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I am not an expert. So Dorgu, I knew nothing about him up until a couple of weeks ago when the names first started kind of coming out there, and he looks very interesting. Difficulty is, I think, again, having read this book, yes, Dan, I know you keep saying about it, but Liverpool quite like to look for first-team players who played about 150 games because it gives them enough information to say, this guy can do this. It's not just a purple patch. He's not just can do it for a little bit. Omar Marmoush, I don't believe, fell into Liverpool's sort of radar because they'd have said, yeah, you're doing brilliantly, but the data set's too small. We don't know if this is even possible to consistently keep doing, and I think that's probably why Liverpool weren't so interested in him at that moment. However, Kirkes fits much more closely into that sort of information sheet, rightfully said there by Harry or Race, I think it was at the time, when they said about about this. We obviously have the technical director, sporting director now for Bournemouth in house. We already were trying to do a deal with Mamardashvili to send him straight to Bournemouth on loan. So there's a little bit of an allegiance, a bit of an alliance going on there with Bournemouth. Bournemouth have their own issues with PSR. They spent up, and they have spent up quite a bit considerably. They will need to make sales. They're a team who can't generate a lot of match day revenue. They can't generate a lot of commercial revenue either because they're not a huge club, and that's not their fault. It's just the way that it is. So they need to make money off buying and selling players. So Carlos Soler coming in, for me, is writing on the wall. Kirkes is leaving in the summer. It's a done. It's a wrap. He's going to move somewhere. What did make me laugh though was the fact that they said that we beat Man United to a signature. And I thought, well, that's not hard anymore. What is this? The 90s or the early 2000s? But yeah, I'm convinced that Kirkes is someone that Liverpool will be very, very interested in. I think Antoine Semenyo could be a player as well that we could be very interested in as well.
He did a good goal yesterday, didn't he?
Yeah, he scored a fantastic goal. He's in a really, really good vein of form. And again, we can do some of these dodgy swap deals. They need a keeper at Bournemouth. We have a keeper who wants to leave. It all could work. There's things that could be done. We kind of got annoyed at Nottingham Forest and Newcastle doing these sort of cheeky swap deals between themselves. But maybe we could get involved and give ourselves plenty of leg room and head room and kind of help each other out. But they're a fantastic club. It has to be said that Richard Hughes has helped build that fantastic club. So, again, give him time. I know people are growing frustrated with Richard Hughes, but he's took on a big job. He really has took on a big job, and there's a lot of work to do with a club like Liverpool. So, but yeah, left backs, we need one. That's all I'm saying. I'll take one today. Yeah. But what I can't say is I won't get into the idea that we're going to be talking 50, 60 million pounds for a left back. It's just not happening. You just don't spend that kind of money at left back. Liverpool don't, at least.
There is a lot of work to do. There's a league to be won. There's plenty of points still on the board. We always knew that this is going to be a tough season. And certainly leading the way that we are, it's never going to be easy. We're not going to win this league by 15, 20 points. It's going to go down to the wire. Let's make sure that we are well ahead when it comes to that last month, 6 weeks. The best thing to do is make sure that we have the players, they're fit, and all we can do is just keep on backing the players. I am your host, Charlie. I want to say thank you to Dan, Harry, Race. It's been an absolute privilege having you guys on as usual with me. I want to say thank you to everyone on the chat. Hit those likes, hit the subscribes. leaves a comment. Join us tomorrow. We'll be back. Let's talk about Liverpool more. We're going to lead into the weekend, the massive, massive games. I just want to say thank you. Good night, Reds.